everyone.
Morning, Mbak.
Welcome to Ajak Diskusi, Working Abroad, tips on how to success in your next overseas opportunities as logistician. All right, so this webinar will be presented by collaboration between Indonesia Logistic Association with Michael Page. My name is Nadya, and I will be your moderator for today's discussion. Today, our speaker will share their experience as a supply chain professional and supply chain talent sourcing. Firstly, we will have a first greetings from our first speaker, Adithya Sari, Vice Chairman of Ali Time and Screen. Welcome, Adithya. Hello.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so good morning, everyone. Thanks, Nadya. And really happy to join the discussion today, both from Ali as well as a speaker. So maybe let me share, I think, is how Ali actually started. Let me just mix between Bahasa Indonesia and English. So Ali, Asosiasi Logistik Indonesia, was started before that, Nadya or Krisa. So Ali started as a professional organization of logistician in Indonesia. So our founders, a few of our founders, jadi pendiri kita pada saat itu melihat kayaknya miris di awal tahun 2000-an bahwa sebagian besar dari profesional logistik dan terutama logistik director pada saat itu kebanyakan adalah ekspatriat. Jadi misi dari founders kita waktu itu adalah untuk gimana caranya Indonesian supply chain or logistic professional become jadi tuan rumah di negara sendiri gitu ya. So the founders think that we should come together and form an association, Asosiasi Logistik Indonesia, to be the forum to develop the capability of logistician in Indonesia. 10-15 years afterwards, sometimes between 2010 to 2015, we see much more logistic directors that is local Indonesian, and we start to see some of Indonesian taking up regional role as well, which is actually a very proud moment for Ali. So we didn't stop there, right? So we continue. And we see how Indonesian logistic professional can take up the role, not only as a director, but as a professional in the region. And that's one of the main missions. So we want to develop the capability of logistic supply chain professionals. We want to provide exposures. So it involves education, it involves seminars, it involves a lot of cooperations between Ali and multiple parties to really equip professionals to be ready not only to manage supply chain roles in Indonesia, but also more presence in the region. So this discussion really fit to that topic, that mission, and we move, kita naik kelas dari ngomongin pemain logistik di lokal. Sekarang kita cerita tentang bagaimana kita Indonesian logistic supply chain professionals are able and prepared to take up roles in overseas, in the region or globally eventually. Yeah, and so I'm very glad that we have Azim today with us. A good friend of mine who has diverse background. He's a Malaysian, based in Indonesia, coming from the logistic professional sourcing background. So we would like to hear from him later on how the market looks like and what are the employers overseas actually is looking at for talents in supply chain, not only in Indonesia, especially at least in the region, if not globally, right? So this will be, I really think looking forward for this discussion. this is not just Azim and myself presenting, but we are really actually is looking forward for questions from participants. You can ask anything about what is required and how to grow our career in supply chain with in globalization era. So let's enjoy the discussion today, and really hope that we can learn from each other and eventually prepare ourselves as well as Indonesian supply chain professional in general, not only have more presence in Indonesia, but also in the region. Thanks a lot. So with that, I pass it back to Nadya.
Thank you, Madid. So next, greetings from our second speaker, Mr. Azim Abdul Rashid, Associate Partner from Michael Page, Indonesia. Time and screen are welcome.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Pak Adithya, Nadya, and Ali for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to be part of your journey over here. So very quick introduction about myself. So as Pak Adithya has mentioned earlier on, I'm originally Malaysian. I've been in the recruitment industry for more than 10 years now. I actually started my career in Kuala Lumpur when we actually launched our Michael Page business from KL. That was back in 2013. And then fast forward in 2018, I actually took the opportunity, to actually move to Indonesia. And over here, I actually focused predominantly initially recruiting for procurement and supply chain roles. And then subsequently in 2020, I moved into Page Executive. So Page Executive, my current role is focusing more on recruiting the top end of the spectrum. And occasionally, I also handle regional roles, which is why Adithya thought it would be a good idea for me to join, to share, because this is essentially what we are hearing from the market. Now, for those who might not know about Michael Page and Page Exec, we are actually a British recruitment firm. So we've been in the market, for more than 30 over years. Specifically in APAC. Now in Indonesia, like I mentioned, we started off in 2013. So we've been here almost 10 years now. So essentially, we are recruiting professionals from diverse background, diverse job function, and procurement and supply chain is one of it. So I used to work with both brands, Michael Page and Page Exec. So hopefully today, my role essentially is to give you insight about the market, what exactly the clients are looking for, and then at the end, I'm very happy to answer any question that I hope would help with your career search abroad. So over to you, Nadya.
Okay, thank you for the greetings, Azim. So, okay, for those of you that just joining us, thank you and welcome to today's webinar. Also, we are excited to see any questions. So, if there's any question that you want to ask to the speakers, please comment in the chat box, and we will read it in the Q&A session. All right. So, moving on, without further ado, let's jump to our discussion. First, maybe we should get Adit's point of view on your experience when you are working abroad. I saw that all right. I saw that you have experience working in Singapore. So can you tell us more, Adit?
Yeah, maybe I think I haven't really explained my background just now. If we think it's Chris or you just now actually is a share. So if you can put that slide again, so I can explain a little bit. So again, good morning everyone. So I'm Adithya. I'm the Vice Chairman, Wakil Ketua Ali untuk International Relationship and Partnership. In the same time, on my day job, I'm the Vice President for HAVI for Cluster of Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia. Although there is additional scope of growth, slight changes, but I'm in the regional role based in Jakarta at the moment. So maybe it's a little bit background. I'm Indonesian, obviously. Studied. I think so. Maybe I just put into my journey. Was studying in Bandung. Graduated from ITB, from ITB, and obviously logistics back in the 90s was not that popular, but there's an initial interest on transportation management back then, and the idea of adding value through distribution. Graduated during the crisis, unemployed for a year and plus, and looking for a postgrad degree to really beef up my opportunity to get a job. So I applied for a master degree in Singapore in NUS, and throughout the way, then I realized that actually I have I understand more about logistics industry. And I choose master that specializing in logistics. Very rare back then in 1999 to have education in logistics, especially in this region. Yeah. And throughout that, obviously in Singapore, where the logistics is always key topics, I get more exposure there. And I think it's the reason why I put additional benefit here is permanent residence, because that also benefiting in for me getting the job after that. As a master degree graduates, I think it's a government of Singapore offer Singapore permanent residency upon graduation. So I took up that role and I get a job in Singapore. Back then, Excel Logistics, that eventually become DHL Supply Chain. That's my first job as management trainee. So as a management trainee, I went through multiple roles back then, really in the country. Started as, we call it, I think it's more of a stock take supervisor on the ground, and then a lot of operational opportunity, become the warehouse designer, become PA, and at sometimes. So there's a lot of roles which actually is really beneficial for my subsequent roles in my career. There are a few things that I will explain later. During that 4 years in Singapore, I really think is value not only the real life work experience working on the ground, but very important to have networking. There's a lot of friends that I have now. Now actually is taking up the important roles in logistics, which is actually we grew together professionally. Another area is also having a mentor, which someone that I can talk to on my career, on what I have to do. And related to that, one of my mentor actually is telling me that I have to have a career roadmap. Basically, it's, I was joining the workforce very late. My first real job was when I was 27 years old. So he said that, well, you really need to know what you want to do, right? So I need to define back then what I want to do when I'm 30, 35, and 40. I said that I will go for general management. So all of my job eventually need to align to what I want. And with continuous learning also related to that. My background is engineering. And if I want to go into general management role, I need to learn finance, I need to learn sales, I need to learn something, I need to learn HR, right? So I took up like postgrad diploma on finance. I took up some exposures, project exposures voluntarily on other things, especially on finance and sales. Yeah, so which eventually helps. Yeah. I moved back to Jakarta in 2005. Then I'm exposed in multiple roles again, account management in the beginning, operations lead, and eventually sales, which is actually is really aligned to the roadmap, the career roadmap that I put on in the early of my career. And so I moved. Eventually, I took up the eventually I get general management role in 2012, still based in Jakarta. So pretty much my dream. And in 2018, I was also offered the general management role for sub-region, consists of Indonesia, Singapore, and Malaysia. So I manage a cluster, as well as the regional growth role. And this is really actually I enjoy every day of it, and I think it's still learning every day in the role. So this is my brief journey, and obviously what we are going to discuss today, for me there's some subjectivity because I relate that to my journey, but as well, thing is I try to see what are the important steps, being good or bad mistakes, I think is that I would like to share and discuss today. So that's my journey, Nadya.
Thank you, Aditya. It's interesting on how you move from Bandung Institute of Technology and then decided to go to the master degree in Singapore and finally get the working experience in Singapore. But I want wondering also, what's the hurdles on getting overseas job? Maybe Azim can fill up us on this based on your experience, Azim. What is
Yep.
the hardest trait that makes someone fail to become expatriate? Because in Aditya case, he is like a master degree in Singapore, but
Mhm.
what was the traditional case or based on your experience?
Understood. Thank you so much for the question. I think there are a lot of people like Aditya who move to Singapore or any other country where they study, and then subsequently they get a job opportunity, and then from there they start working and they remain abroad. But conventionally, for people who study in their own country, the challenge I think for anyone to find a job abroad is you have to understand you're competing with the local talent from the country that you want to go. So I'll give you an example. If you're an Indonesian and you aspire to work in Thailand, the barrier of entry for that will be there are a lot of talents in Thailand that is doing the same job, or maybe much better in some cases because they speak the language. So in order for you to essentially be of added value, you need to figure out, for example, what are the trends or skill set that is currently required in the market, and that's where I hope I will be able to tell you a bit more. So one, definitely the challenge is the localization of individual country. Second, sometimes you have the right skill set, you have the right experiences, and then when you want to apply for a job, you need to figure out, okay, what are the visa requirement for individual country. So whether to find a job in Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, not just having the right skill set is not just the right the only thing. So you need to also figure out, okay, who do I talk to? I think Aditya mentioned earlier on about connection. So he maintained a very good connection and network. Ultimately, anything in our professional work, it's all about the networking. So it's good, before you start thinking about exploring out, is to build a network within the industry that you're in or the industry that you want to go into, whether it's logistics and so on, because that will also help you to figure out what are the information needed, and that's related to the visa. And then finally, I think for anyone to work abroad, even for myself, even though I came from Malaysia, I also had certain hesitancy, right, when I worked abroad, because just because we are what they call satu rumpun, we are not exactly the same, different nuances, different language sometimes. So I think the barrier there is for young professionals or professionals who are already in Indonesia right now to work abroad. To understand there will be cultural adoption, so there will be learning curve over there, and you need to be open, or obviously to different style of working. Even for myself coming into Indonesia, I had my culture shock as well when I work with clients, suppliers over here. But that's part of the learning process. So to answer your question, essentially, understand what is the local requirements from the individual country that you are interested in. Build the network, very very early in your career, so that you'll be able to prepare yourself, obviously, before you start exploring out. I don't know, Adithya, if you want to comment on that or agree or disagree on my points.
No, I think it's totally agree, right? Thing is, it's you can't assume. All right, thing is, just shared that one of my role, pretty recently, that I also manage Malaysia, right? And I started my professional life in Singapore, and I'm Indonesian. I thought that, oh, come on, thing is, I can really understand Malaysia, right? But totally wrong, right? Because every country has a different, unique culture, right? And especially in logistics, a lot of different regulation, a lot of different practice, right? So it's continuous learning for me, right? Thing is, in addition.
Adithya, we missed you. We just it seems you're on mute.
Yes, I think the.
Is it okay now?
Yep.
Yeah, sorry. So I think it's another point that I would like. I think is just to emphasize your point just now is networking, and this is really important. And well, we can say that people will say that, hey, yeah, opportunity for everyone. But I think it's the real life when you have network, when the employer knows you before and knows how capable you are, it's really a plus point. Especially the higher you go up, a lot of the chemistry aspect to that, right? In my experience, working in international company, multinational company helps that because you are exposed to multiple people in the region, and I always see. I think it's one of my experience in the past was I was kind of like, I think it's become a PA for a CEO or COO back then. It's very interesting how they look at candidates, and not only that, right? I think is how they, although I think it's in a higher level, I thought that, wow, there will be a lot of discussion and analysis, right? But really, actually, is if you're not in the radar of the people that going to recruit you, if they don't know you, right, how can they choose you, right? So I think that's what one important thing to be in the management radar, and the multinational company is really a good, I think it's a plus point, and that happened throughout my career. I continue to have mentors, and I would say godfathers as well. Someone high up there that I can always talk to. I mean, it's in a positive note, right? Someone who can guide you because they have gone through that before, right? So that's networking, knowing the culture of the country, and really actually is knowing your roadmap, where you want to be is important.
Yeah, and I think just to add on a final point, if you're a young professional working with a company, you might also ask, okay, if I work with a company, can I transfer abroad? And I think like, a multinational is a good starting point. So I see a lot of Indonesian candidates on a daily basis, and I look at their profile. Those people who actually went abroad typically went abroad with the company that they work with in Indonesia, the same way like probably like Pak Adithya. So I think on top of building your networking and asking the building the network, you also need to have the courage to ask the question. So when you spend 2 to 3 years in a job, whether it's in logistics, planning, warehousing, as Indonesia becoming more important regionally, not just as a manufacturing hub, and so on, you need to ask your bosses or your management, okay, what are the opportunities out there internally that I could do beyond my current scope? Because typically in any sales job as well, if you don't ask, you won't get. So I think that will be another pointer for young professional, because I think like there are a lot of opportunity, but sometimes we are too scared to ask. Even if you are in front of the right people, we don't know how to put it. Be direct, just ask for it. The worst thing scenario is you get no, but that's okay.
Yeah, if I can add to that, Azim, it's really important to have be it within the company and as well as in the industry to have personal branding. Right? I think it's I see a lot that making known your dream, your intention, I think is really important, and making yourself perceived as some kind of branding is important. How I see, for example, sometimes what you want, for example, you want to be a director of specific, for example, supply chain analytics. It might not relevant now, right? But when that position available, it's important that imagine that your name will be the top of the list of someone who require that skills, be it in the company or outside of the company, your ex-colleagues, your association, and so on, your association members, and so on, right? So just like sales in general, how that kind of perception, I think, is be in the mind of the recruiters or the users, or at least someone who close to the recruiters eventually, because it's in high level. Even on my side, I always ask my connection, hey, do you know someone who has this capability and this kind of capability for this kind of situation? I just imagine that if that kind of image actually is in someone's head, and I say, hey, I know this guy that actually really fit to that, right? It's very important. And maybe as I share my role in the current role, which is a country manager for Harvey, I got a job because someone was asked by the headhunters back then, anyone knows this job, and he said that I know this guy Adithya who really fit to the job. So it's really important to have that personal branding. You never know, right, when the opportunity comes, but when the opportunity really there, you want to be the first thing that in someone's mind for the job.
Nice. But it, like, most of the young professional in Indonesia, like there's no connection to that point, right? So in the management level. So
Yep.
if there is any chance that the young professional can connect to the headhunter or the agency, and how to reach them usually in both of your cases, maybe Azim, maybe, or
Yeah,
Aditya?
I don't mind sharing from a recruitment point of view, and then Aditya can share from a professional point of view. So obviously, like, our job as a recruiter is to network. So we are, nowadays, we are no longer, in the 1980s where, you have to submit your resume, physical resume. We are all on LinkedIn. So I think, like, a lot of the attendants today are already doing the right thing, attending webinar, seeing who are the recruiters out there. And then the next thing that you need to do is actually to send a connection, drop a message, let's meet up, have coffee, build a network, because that's how I build my business as well. It's all through networking and getting to know people. So there is no such thing, because you only have 2 years working experience, you cannot get connected to any MDs, in the market. In logistics, and there's a lot of event. Obviously, Ali is one of it. There's a lot of other organizations as well. Meet up people, like, go to event, exchanges, business card, because that's how, like, from word of mouth, especially in Indonesia. And this is obviously coming from a foreigner like myself. Indonesia, compared to any other countries in the region, is a very relationship driven country. Another relationship driven country would be Thailand, Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, but we see a lot more here. So what that means is that if you want to work abroad, for example, you do need to start building the network from here, and you need to talk to the highest people out there, MD, regional MD, and you always get that opportunity from just, like, going to LinkedIn, go to events and so on. So that's how I would suggest any young logistics professional to start building the network with zero effort, essentially. Just have a LinkedIn profile, update your resume online, and then start networking. Over to you, Aditya.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much aligned. I think it's I would say that the opportunity for connection well, this time I think is much more than before. Not comparing, but I think is if we see now, right, I think is a LinkedIn obviously a big source of connection. If we approach it well, right, I think it's LinkedIn really actually is can get you noticed by potential employer. Obviously, I think is we need to differentiate ourselves why we are interested on something, right? Because I think it's maybe just one note on LinkedIn. People get rejected in LinkedIn because they don't introduce themselves enough. People will scared that is this guy is going to sell something to me, or is this guy actually is going to just want to get into my network. But if, say for example, if someone is not only early professional or students or even actually professionals, actually, so if they say that, hey, sir, or ma'am, I'm interested in any company. This is my capability. If you think of any position, maybe we can speak, we can talk, and I would appreciate if you can connect with me. It's easy. I think it's as easy as that, right? Because LinkedIn really actually is a great resource to that. Another, like you said, another thing that I think is we can use now post COVID. We can use the opportunity of events, right? People get noticed through not only introduction, but I think by asking questions, right? Well, we know who is actually the people who just basically is asking for the sake of asking, or the people that actually have that. So if you ask the right questions, I think you get noticed. Someone will get noticed. Someone will notice you that, hey, this guy actually have some experience, so he can ask that kind of question. Other than that, I think it's especially for students. We start. There's a lot. I think it's a lot of company now introduced, whether it's internship, apprenticeship, right? Opportunities, and grab that. Because that will get you noticed, and not only get you noticed of the company that you work for, probably the customer of the company that you work for, or the supplier of that. Entering to that community, basically establish your branding in that community, which will benefit you in future.
Oke. Mungkin aku summary dikit ya with bahasa. Jadi kalau mau masuk nih ke dunia high level yang international career gitu, berarti we need to start networking dulu ya. Jadi kalau nggak bisa networking ke high level, mungkin bisa connect ke lewat LinkedIn, lewat apa ini namanya webinar gini, terus di chat ya siapa speakernya gitu ya, tapi introduce dengan yang baik-baik gitu ya. Jadi perkenalan dirinya lebih oke gitu, so that the speaker or the expert juga kenal siapa kita gitu ya. Oke, so let's move on kayaknya ya, kita ke next topic, yaitu what skill that makes people in Indonesia especially can be noticed sama people in industry tapi yang di internasional gitu. Mungkin dari Azim, can you elaborate more? What's the most hired type of job and which industry? Kan you punya experience di manufacturing, logistics, procurement. So let's hear it.
Okay, good. I think this is more like a hiring trends, speaking on behalf of maybe clients and in the market. Definitely for supply chain, in the last 10 to 15 years, there is a shift in terms of mindset for supply chain. Before supply chain logistics, it is a support function. So what I mean is, as a support function means that if I have a good person, that's okay. But if I don't have it, I'll make do. But right now, it is a must-have job function. It is an important job function for all the companies, because if for example sales doesn't do well, then they will look into procurement and logistics for process improvement. cost reduction, and so on. So the most higher type of jobs that we are looking at right now in the region, where there are a lot more international or expatriate being hired in that kind of position, will be more into procurement and sourcing. And this is what I want to share. If you are preparing into going into supply chain or logistics, maybe you want to start thinking about going into procurement or sourcing role, which is, I would consider in recruitment, a higher level thinking role, where usually procurement professionals, they are responsible to source for material. They have to negotiate, they have to follow up with a customer, they have to ensure the product that they are buying, the raw material that they are sourcing, is of good price, good quality. So a lot of these candidates at this level, they basically do a lot of negotiation of contracts, managing supplier relationship. And this tie back to what we've just mentioned before, and Aditya mentioned early on, when you work with your customer will get to know you. So this is a good role, not only for you, because in the market this is the sought after. Why it is sought after? Because while there are a lot of people doing it, there are not a lot of good people doing it. So if you can start your early career doing sourcing and procurement role, whether through apprentice work or internship, and then gradually moving into a permanent role, that will give you the better chance to get a job abroad. Say, for example, in Singapore, where Singapore is a regional procurement hub for a lot of companies. Malaysia as well started with a lot of procurement roles in before. So when you choose the right job, for example, procurement role, that will give you an added advantage long term, because they will see, wow, this person has already handled Indonesia, which is a very big market. Can we promote him to move into a regional role where he would cover Malaysia or Singapore, where it's not bigger than Indonesia, but it will give you an additional opportunity, to take up a bigger role for you to learn. The next role, which is also the hardest role to recruit right now in Indonesia, in Thailand, in the Philippines, is a planning role. So what I mean by planning role, typically the hardest planning role is the demand planner, or what they call sales and operation planning role. Why these are difficult roles to recruit? Again, like I mentioned, these are all higher level thinking roles, where a demand planner or sales and operation planning role, they usually have to analyze historical sales data, market trends, understanding how to forecast the future look of the business. So a lot of this role, if for example, a Malaysian company or a Thai company or Vietnamese company, if they want to recruit, they will probably try to recruit someone who have this experience abroad, because in those countries like Thailand, Vietnam, and Philippines, there aren't enough good talent as well. So if you can start, looking into moving into a planning role, that would be good, because in the next 5 to 10 years, this would still be a hot job for any company. So if you want to move abroad, target this type of role. Finally, I would say this is up and coming. This is related to sustainability. So what I'm seeing in the market right now, a lot more companies, because they have to abide into the ESG requirements, which is the sustainability requirements set forth by the industry. A lot more professionals are required to know how to source properly. That means, they need to identify where is the source. Is the source coming from a sustainable a source, and how do you make sure that the products and everything, including services, are given in the right manner, because obviously you need to make sure the supply chain strategies, the supply chain processes that you are coming out with, is a responsible policy. So to summarize, what we are seeing right now, procurement, demand planning, and sustainability related supply chain are the most sought after jobs regionally. So if you wanna move abroad in the next 5 to 10 years, these are the kind of jobs that I would suggest that you start focusing right now. I don't know whether, Aditya, you are seeing that, having worked in Malaysia, or from your competitors on the logistics side.
I think it's pretty much aligned. I totally agree. The market, I think, is in the past, especially in the past 2 years, there's a lot of disruption, especially in Asia. Sea freight continue to be disrupted, air freight continue to be disrupted, and we experienced, especially in the past Asia I think is facing up and down in supply assurance. Right? Having someone, I think, is both who know how to source, right, and who knows how to plan are really important. I also see that this role has also evolved in the past 2 years. We used to have someone who, I know this supplier, I know how to do a simple forecasting. That is no longer enough. Right? I think it's more and more customer require us not only to know what it is now, but also consult them on the decision. I give an example. Previously, when the shipment is fixed, right, I think it is much more reliable. Say from US, we expect in 40 days the shipment come to Indonesia. Now it can be 40 days, it can be 3 months, can be 2 months, right? So how the supply planner and sourcing capability able to be agile and flexible, adaptive to those changes. Experience, obviously, I think is will play a part because the network, and with experience and also with knowledge, you are expected to provide solution. Someone with kind of like solutioning capability is highly sought after in the market. One more, I think, is more and more the ability to analyze. So analytics, understanding of what technology can do for us. Yep. Imagine that with all those, right, with all those uncertainty, if we are still using Excel to do that, it takes days, right? While the customer need to know, hey, if I do this, what is the impact? If I do that, what's the impact, right? So not only descriptive, but it has to be more predictive and prescriptive in our discussion. Understanding of the technology, well, I don't think you really need to have to be a hardcore programmer, but I think you understand what the technology can do and assess how that can help your work is really important. Indonesia, I believe, I think has a lot of those kind of opportunity because I believe there's a lot of improvement in cost of goods sold if we can resolve that. And another thing is more and more, because this role doesn't have to be based in country. Let's say, for example, a company that is based in Malaysia, well, in some extent, the demand planner doesn't have to sit in Kuala Lumpur, for example. It can be in other country because it's more of analytical with all the technology that we have now that is possible. One of the quality, I think, is obviously qualification is important, right? To have related relevant qualification is important. Having the experience is important. However, I think it's one thing that actually is getting more importance is ability to learn continuously and be adaptive, right? Because we don't know what's going to happen next year. For us, we can't just stop off with what we have now, but we also be able to be open and adaptive on new trend, new knowledge. Yeah, networking obviously helps in on doing that, but the openness for us to know that, hey, this is the technology that I can use now. This is different than before. Throughout the interview, usually I also try to see that, and I believe, I think, is that this will be one of the quality that will be sought after in future.
Yeah, and I think, Adithya, just to add on the technology part, I spoke to my counterpart in Singapore. In the last 6 months, the highest paying jobs for supply chain are related to data analytics, and they are paying ridiculously good money, essentially to promote procurement people to do more data analytics work. So they are using different kind of like system. All these system, like Adithya said, you don't have to be a programmer. A lot of this will be given, by the company. But guess what? The job function that they come from is actually procurement, because they are more strategic in that sense. So technology is definitely key there. Just need to stress, we cannot shy away from using system, Power BI, ERP, any type of ERP like SAP or Oracle, because that will be the future. Like Adithya said, if you're still using Excel, unfortunately, you're not going to move very far.
Yeah, agree. Yeah.
I see. But if we go back to the Aditya discussion previously, he said that the roadmap. So Azim said that we need to prepare beforehand, right? And we need to know most of them is like from started from sales, S&D, BD, and then goes up to the higher level. So Aditya, can you share how you mapping your career road map from the early days when you jump to the working industry?
So, well, I honestly means I only planned that when I started working. I think it's a through discussion with mentors, with coach, I mean, it's internal coach, friends mainly. That the thing is, just imagine this as a journey. You need to know, kita harus tahu kita mau jalan kemana kan. Kalau kita mau jalan ke misalnya ke Bandung, kita harus tahu lewat mana dan apa yang dibutuhkan untuk jalan ke sana. Mungkin nggak jalannya nggak lurus gitu ya dari Jakarta ke Bandung. Tapi yang penting adalah ngarahnya ke sana. Gitu. For example, just imagine if we want to be, say, a general manager, right, or country manager atau CEO. Backgroundnya misalnya spesifik, misalnya sales gitu. Kita harus tahu bahwa kalau mau jadi CEO itu harus butuhnya apa aja gitu. Ya, cara paling gampang adalah lihat iklan ya. Kalau mau jadi CEO itu butuhnya apa aja sih gitu. Minimal qualification-nya apa. Dari situ kemudian kita bisa lihat sebenarnya untuk itu misalnya oke, saya ngerti sales, tapi saya sebagai CEO saya harus ngerti finance. Kemudian kita harus cari tahu jalan ke arah finance itu seperti apa. Either kita sekolah formal, apakah kemudian kita exposure dari project atau ambil sertifikasi dan lain sebagainya. Bisa juga misalnya kalau misalnya kayak gitu saya harus tahu operation-nya dong gitu ya. Nah, jadi itu building blocks-nya juga harus dibikin. Jadi kayak journey. In the start of the journey, you need to know where you want to go. Kalau misalnya kita mau jadi CEO, dan menurut saya ini perlu confident. Maksudnya dreams sometimes you surprise bahwa kalau misalnya kita bisa mimpi itu bisa jadi kenyataan. Atau sebaliknya kalau misalnya saya pengen jadi chief engineer misalnya atau engineering director, tentunya jalannya akan berbeda, bahwa saya akan jadi spesialisasi di engineering, saya harus sekolah seperti ini, saya harus dapat project exposure seperti ini gitu. Kalau sama juga kalau misalnya saya mau kerja di Singapura misalnya, atau saya pengen kerja di Eropa, dari awal kita udah harus tahu apa sih yang dibutuhkan di sana, sertifikasi, kualifikasi, kemampuan bahasa, dan yang juga seringkali kita lupa adalah perizinan. Ya, seperti Azim bilang tadi. Kalau misalnya mau kerja di luar negeri, maka perizinan seperti apa? Apa sih yang dibutuhkan gitu? Bisa nyicil-nyicil dari sekarang gitu. Untuk yang masih sekolah atau masih pengen sekolah, kalau misalnya kita mau kerja di suatu negara, itu akan punya keuntungan untuk sekolah di negara tersebut, S1 atau S2 gitu. Karena setelah itu selain kita juga lebih dekat dengan marketnya, kita juga lebih tahu apa yang dibutuhkan nantinya di sana, gitu ya. Untuk di beberapa negara yang saya tahu, misalnya Kanada, some extent Singapura, setelah jadi postgraduate itu jauh lebih mudah untuk mendapatkan residensi dibandingkan beberapa negara yang lain, gitu ya. Nah, itu tentunya kita harus sebagai journey itu kita harus tahu nih. Kalau saya mau ke sini, apa yang dibutuhkan, dan saya harus siapin itu satu demi satu. Gitu. Jadi memang nggak instan saya pengen kayak gini besok kejadian. Jadi building blocks itu harus disiapkan. Gitu. Itu yang saya maksudkan dengan roadmap. Jadi kalau kita mau ke Bandung, jalannya harus lewat mana, apa saja yang harus kita siapkan. Kurang lebih seperti itu, Nadya.
Yep. Maybe Azim can understand a little bit, but
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Maybe I can add from recruitment point of view, because I interview a lot of candidates, right? So when you ask about their roadmap, no one can know until they start working. Because like myself, I never thought, like, growing up I'll be a recruiter for supply chain and procurement, right? So only when I was presented the opportunity, I decided to specialize. A lot of candidates are like that as well. So they join a company. After 2 to 3 years, they sit down with their bosses. So maybe they sit down with Pak Adithya, the MD, and they ask, okay, Pak Adithya, what's next for me? What's my next career move? So sometimes it's very hard for us to tell you this. If you follow this formula, you'll be successful. There is no such thing. So it's all about asking the right question. And kalau, like, say for example, in Aditya as a MD, has a new project in Malaysia, he might say, okay, are there any Indonesians who would be willing to take up this opportunity? Then the employees need to raise up their hands and say, okay, I am willing to take that opportunity. I'm willing to take that challenge. The issue that we have with a lot of, like, I would say, local talents over here, sometimes they are afraid to step up. So the opportunities are there, because you know why? Indonesia is a very, very important market for a lot of companies. Before it was Singapore, before it was Malaysia. Now Indonesia is running the show. I mean, you look at Aditya. Aditya started from more or less like Indonesia. Now he's covering regional role. His career is a blueprint for a lot of Indonesian in the next 5 to 10 years, because they will start their career from Indonesia. There is a chance to do a new project. You need to raise up your hands and say, okay, I want to take that chance, and then the roadmap will come out from there. So whether it's project management and so on and so forth, then people will start saying, wow, that person can actually handle project management for 2 countries. Let's promote him for 3 countries. Let's send him to Vietnam to do the same thing. One last point is, I just recently met a candidate, a very senior candidate. He has been in Indonesia for pretty much his whole career. He's a sales and marketing director, but the business told him, you have done a good job, 7 years in this company. Uh, you know what? Can you do the same in another country outside Southeast Asia? So you know what? It's not a common country, but he went anyway. You know why that's important? Because for him to be an MD and get to Aditya's stage, one of the key requirement is he needs to work abroad. So if not just for junior level, for senior level people as well, this is important. So you need to move outside your comfort zone to get promoted later on.
I see. Interesting. But can we, like, how we consult it? If is there like space aside of mentor or
Yep.
our boss lah? Can we do go to the expertise like agency to ask what is my roadmap, how I can divide my 5 year next step and etc. Can you share to us, Azim? Is there any like agency that do that? Because I don't know.
It is essentially like recruitment companies like Michael Page and Page Executive. We are a consultant. So we are a consultant for our client, and we are a consultant to our candidates. So when I interview a candidate, so say for example, if any of your attendees today send me a resume, I will look at their profile and I would adjust and I will comment, okay, you have had this project for the last couple of years. I always ask them as well, what do you want to do next? And then I would tell them the market insight that I've been sharing as well, whether it makes sense for you to go into that kind of role. For example, if you are a procurement person and you only want to specialize in procurement, that's okay. But you cannot move to become a senior leader if you only handle procurement. If you go back to Aditya's profile early on, what did he do? He handled HR, he handled operations, he handled logistics, he handled P&L. So what there are agencies, so people like me will advise, but we will also look at what you're doing right now and what do you want to do. So I think Aditya mentioned as well, at the end of the day, you also need to know what you want to do first, because we cannot give you a formula and then you just follow. We will advise you based on what you are doing right now, your skill set, and then what's the market trend, what the company needs, and then we will suggest you, okay, maybe I can connect you to this company, maybe I can take you to this company. So that's our job as a recruiter, to identify the opportunity through talking to the candidates, and then introducing the candidate to the client. So yes, to answer briefly, yes, but we don't give you the answer, the live answers. We don't have that.
Of course, of course. So, okay, we can get to the question from Raffi Aditya. Pak Azim, what makes you see someone has value to be recruit and promote abroad? And for Pak Aditya, for working abroad, is it necessary to have competency certification apart from formal degree? Mangga, please. Which
Aditya
one?
first. Aditya first lah.
I think for me, yeah, I think it's for me. Again, I mean, this is part of the roadmap, right? I think it's a different country may have different requirement, different preference, right? I think it's a Commonwealth country may have like certain certification, certain professional qualification that required, right? And that it really actually is something that you need to see. In the UK, obviously, CILT, I think is one of the thing. And if you have relevant education, at least what I would say that this will get you to the door. What I mean by getting you to the door is getting you to get interviewed. This is the first step, right? Because it's no point that actually is you prepare everything, but you're not getting interviewed. I think that's the first step. Some qualification, I think it's a different market, will have a different requirement, but also I think it's important the immigration regulation. I think is we need to understand. So that I can't say specific to which certification or a specific country. Some country may not need, but some country will require. However, I think is what I would also see is I think is that gets you to what gets you to the door doesn't mean that gets you to the job. Additional quality like experience, exposure, because I think is I will also try to answer the questions. I think it's another question. I think is what we see when we look into someone. At some level, I would see that the things that gets to the door and gets people to be interviewed, I think I don't have to check that anymore, right? At some level, probably I think is your GPA, whether you are 3.4 or you are 3.6, doesn't really matter anymore after 10 years, right? But really, actually, is the way that you see things, the way that you communicate your experience. More importantly, how I would see that how the candidate will add value to my organization moving forward. It is really actually something that we look at, right? Aside from the certification and qualification where he studied, but if I talk, right, how this guy will fit into my organization, how this guy or a lady will add value to my organization. That is the big question. So if you start with that question in mind, I think is you can structure things that sells yourself. What's your personal value proposition to the recruiter? That's how I see. Another aspects to me, obviously, motivation, right? To me, might be old school, but I want someone who grow with the company. So someone who think that, yeah, I will get this job, but I will find something else in the next 6 months or 1 year, may not be something that we want to be with. If someone say that I want continuous challenges, I want to have a new role in future, but in the same organization, that's someone that I really want to have. Yeah. So that's how I see. So yep. Certification, qualification gets you to the door, but I think it's also important what gets you the job, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And I think Aditya, on that point, on the communication, I think from employers' point of view, you're right, exactly, because you do recruitment yourself as well. Bachelor's degree or any formal education is just a small prerequisite. So if you have that, great. And in supply chain, procurement and logistics, they are much more flexible. So it's not like engineering function where you need a specific engineering degree. So a lot of candidates or professionals now from supply chain, they don't actually come from supply chain degree, because it's not very common before. So they typically come from engineering, marketing, whatever it is. So degree is not as important as, I would say, communication. So how do you communicate your experiences, your career aspiration, align with what Adithya mentioned? Because ultimately the employers are looking for motivation. So a lot of, I would say, from my experiences recruiting over here, from candidates who are not successful, more often than not, they are not able to articulate what exactly do they do very well. Sometimes they are very shy, like, but they have done a lot of good things. So the clients or Singaporeans, Malaysian, Thai, any expatriates from Europe, what they are looking for is not what you have achieved, but how did you achieve it? So they will tell you, okay, I've achieved, like, efficiency of 100%. Now, a lot of clients, okay, that's great, but how did you actually do it? So they want to know, how would you be able to explain to them, how do you get from point A to point B? So qualification is important, but also think about, when you go for an interview, when you're applying for a job, how do I express my achievement, so that they understand how do I get from point A to point B, because that's more important, because it tells you the thought process. When the client, like Adithya or any company, knows your thought process, then they can also see, oh, okay, this candidate actually can be placed in procurement team, and then I can promote him to planning department, because he also got planning in mind. So as a recruiter, yes, education is important, but don't spend too much time on that. Think about on improving communication style and so on. And
Okay,
English language is a prerequisite. So you want to
I
work
just
abroad,
want to ask.
yeah. English
That-
English communication is number one. So if you don't have to be fluent speaker, everyone needs to learn from scratch, but you need to force yourself, because otherwise you cannot work abroad, as Aditya would
but
tell you.
but Azim, on the English requirement, do we
Yep.
need to like get IELTS 5 or 6, band 6, so that we can like confident to apply the job, or we don't need the certificate, but we can talk, like not that fluent, but we can talk. How
Um, I think it's it's a combination of both. If you have the opportunity to get the IELTS certification, do get it, because when you put on the resume, like Aditya mentioned, it checks a box. But when you talk to recruiters and so on, or companies, you need to be what do they call that? More lively. You need to be
Yeah.
confident. Even though you make some mistakes speaking in English, don't worry. Everyone is learning. As long as you are able to communicate some basic ideas in supply chain, then you are on the right track. Just to reiterate what Aditya juga mentioned just now, continuous learning, that that should be one of the priorities as well when you want to work abroad. Because if you stop learning, you stop speaking, then you're not going to move anywhere. But yeah, it's not a requirement, but if you can have it, that's good. But more day-to-day English conversation is more important.
Okay, another point of view that I want to mention, that you said that like you need to sell yourself by communicate, right? But
Yep.
you said that Michael Page has is like a consultant, right? Is there like mocking test of interview, or mocking interview, to how the candidate structure the self structure, how they will say to the interview? Is there
Yes.
like
Yeah.
something like
So anyone that actually go through Michael Pitch will go through at least an hour interview with one of our consultant. So that's our guarantee to our clients as well. So before the clients meet our candidates, we would have interviewed the candidate first. So that's where, like, so usually when I interview a candidate, I will reserve 10 to 15 minutes to give feedback to the candidate. Okay, so during your conversation, you did not elaborate why did you move from one company to another. When you were explaining about your achievement, you you did not tell me more about how did you actually achieve it. So it helps because, like, we obviously we want the candidate to be successful, so we will give feedback. So it's a it's a symbiosis. Essentially, we need each other, and the candidate needs our feedback as well. So yes, we will do it. An hour.
Okay, thank you. And
I
then
think we have
moving
a
on
few
to
nice, great question from Bu Dewi and Bu Diana Latif. Yeah.
okay, so we move to the next question from Bu Dewi ya. Pak Azim, just now you mentioned that SNLP and demand planner are hardest job because we are looking into the historical data and doing the analytic works. But with the current era where AI and big data are in huge development and we are so depending on it, now to speed up and make right decision making. With that facts, do you think that SNLP roles still be in on top search from employer? Maybe.
Adithya, do you want to start that from a company's point of view, and then I'll tell you from a recruiter's point of view?
All right. Well, this is again amazing. This is a great question, Bu Dewi. Tools, I think we should see tools as tools, not tools as the solution, right? AI, big data, machine learning, right? Predictive analytics, and so on are the tools. Eventually, people are the one who manage that tools, putting the assumptions, putting all the information required, because otherwise it's garbage in, garbage out. And more importantly, people are the one who, the first level of analytics performed by the system, but people are the one who analyze this and communicate that. The requirement from our customers now, I think, is throughout the industry, that just don't tell me what it is, but tell me what I need to do with that. Right? So imagine that you're a doctor. You're not just basically telling that, oh, your cholesterol is high, your blood pressure is high, but as a doctor, you will tell that, okay, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to take this medicine, you have to exercise, don't stress too much, and so on. Right? So I would say the role of not only demand planner or supply chain planner in general, understanding of SNOP or IBP in general are very important, because that will be the role of supply chain professionals in future. Not preparing reports like what we do now, not performing initial analysis that we do now. That will be replaced by the tools that we are talking about. But someone who can analyze that and become a doctor to a client, so the client will feel the value of that discussion. Over to you, Azim.
Yes, I agree on that. And as far as the technology that are coming right now with the AI and big data, it's to complement the candidate. So it is not to replace, which is why, like, this technology will replace conventional mundane jobs. But sales and operation planning, when I recruit a good candidate in sales and operation planning, I'm not just looking at the analytical skills, because I'm also evaluating his or her ability to be able to work with different groups of people, because sales and operation planning is in the middle. They work with the sales department, they work with the supply chain department, they work with the logistics to get enough insight in order for them to advise the company what should be our production planning, for example. So yes, the AI, the big data will provide you the insight, but ultimately there will be one person who will be working with everybody to make sure that, okay, all this information are put in a place where there is a meaningful information that can be presented. And like Adithya mentioned, presented to the customer. Ultimately, it's what the customer wants. So the customer doesn't want to see some report generated and just be sent to them. They want someone to explain, and that's why in my early discussion, if any supply chain professionals want to focus on relocating abroad, work somewhere else in the world, these are the jobs that you need to focus on, because these are the jobs that will unlikely be replaced by computers or AI or big data completely. It wouldn't be, because you still need people to run this. Ultimately, people make companies, not computers.
All right. So, okay, thank you for the answer. Let's move on to the question from Diana Latif. How important is cultural sensitivity in an international work environment?
I can answer that. From talking to a lot of expatriates working in Indonesia, working in other parts of the world, this is also very important, and this is also one of the barrier that I mentioned earlier on, the cultural barrier. So when you come in, you cannot assume the working style, the people are the same, because sometimes even bahasa Malaysia and bahasa Indonesia, the words are the same, but it means differently. So you do need to much so if you go to Thailand, you go to Vietnam, you go to Philippines where they don't speak similar language. So I would suggest anyone who wants to work abroad to read up a lot about the company through books or internet to understand the culture nuances, because sometimes what I've seen a lot of expatriates from Europe or abroad who come to work in Indonesia, there are two types of expatriate, including myself, who, the ones that stay here 1 year, they can't adjust and adapt, they leave. And then the ones who embrace the culture and try to understand the local people and stay here forever. The answer to that question is very, very important. It will make or break your career abroad.
Yeah,
Okay.
if I can add to that, right, thing is that, and especially in supply chain, there's no man is is an island. I think we can't just work alone, right? There's a lot whenever we go to overseas or international environment, we have to work with somebody else, right? And understanding the culture of the people that we work with is very important. I think is we never, I think we should not underestimate the importance of the culture and understanding the history, the culture, what's the do's and the don'ts sometimes is really important. And because this is, especially in the service industry, like supply chain and logistics, it's all about how people connect. Right? We connect with other people, and culture plays significant part of that.
I see. Okay. And next to the Aris question, how do you assess and qualify someone who have been working in a startup for 3 years that focuses in logistic aggregator, managing supply and demand for the customers? Is it good fit for the planning role, since the role is about managing end-to-end process from order management to shipping monitoring? Appreciate for the feedback. Thank you.
Okay, I maybe I can start on that. I think Aris, you do have a very good initial experience. Logistic aggregator, has been a good industry in the last couple of years with the booming of e-commerce, and I think if you were to move into a planning role, ideally the best planning people come from consumer manufacturing. So if there is any chance for you to move into that kind of company, that would be good, because with consumer companies, their lead time is very small. Therefore, the way they do planning needs to be much faster and much more accurate compared to industrial manufacturing or any kind of logistics services. So if you have a chance, go to the consumer side. If you don't, I think you can stick in the logistics industry, but try to take up bigger planning roles within the organization if it allows you. Now I don't know much about the specific logistic aggregator at the mid-level end, but I think you do have a good starting block, and then from there you can build in your experience. Again, the roadmap also depends by you talking to your internal company, for example, or people within your network. Where can you actually apply out as well? I don't know if you agree with me on that, Adithya.
No, agree. I think is my assessment to that is whenever we see a candidate, I think is we see the breadth and the depth. Ya, jadi lebar dan dalamnya gitu ya. So as logistic aggregator, obviously I think is managing end-to-end supply chain. You have the breadth. But I believe I think is you need to add the depth. Jadi lebarnya udah ada, dalamnya mungkin harus dilihat yang mana yang harus lebih dalam. If you want to go into planning, right, then obviously I think it's and then again, the importance of roadmap, doing the gap analysis, know what you need to improve, and what kind of job that you want to have is really important. I can't really, I think it's a comment in details, but yeah, that's what I say. That's what I would suggest as a framework. Really, with the breadth knowledge that really help you to make the decision or provide solution in the depth level. For example, kalau misalnya kita tahu sebenarnya efek keseluruhan dari keputusan itu ke supply chain secara keseluruhan, dan kita tahu detailnya, itu akan membantu kita mengambil keputusan yang lebih baik instead of just knowing that area. But on the other hand, if you do not have some level of detail, you might make a wrong decision as well. So look at the breadth and the depth, and equip yourself according to your dream job and your roadmap.
Okay, thank you. Nice. Okay, so it looks like we have covered all of our question, right? Okay, so for closing, is there anyone that want to cover before we wrap up the session from Azim or Adithya?
I think final words from me before Adithya closing. There are a lot of opportunities out there in the market. We have given you some ideas. Obviously, we are here to help you further. But be brave. Ask the right question. Network with people, and then whenever there is an opportunity to do something different or harder, do not shy away from it. That will be my final thoughts. To close the session.
Yeah, for me, I always see that the biggest barrier of someone to grow their career, and especially if they want to go overseas, is it's not the technical part. The thing is, I always see that the biggest, and I see a lot of case on this. The biggest barrier starts from themselves. Do they believe that they can take up more roles? Whether they can take up roles in international, it starts with yourself. And being Indonesian, sometimes I feel that Indonesians are not confident enough as compared to other nationals. We think that my English is not so good, right? I think it's my degree is not relevant. I need certification, and only with that I can start dreaming about growing up my career or going overseas. Don't let that to stop you from first dream for the job, and second search for the roadmaps of the job. That is really important. Unless you overcome that first barrier, whatever that we discussed today will not make any impact. Right, so let's do that. Right, I think is and one thing I think is in Ali. Really, Ali is not a group of companies. Ali is an association of logistics professionals, which is actually makes that very interesting. And we are from members to members, right? So one of the opportunity for networking really actually is being a member of Ali. So maybe later we can put our email here, and I think so to register, so you can be more active in our event. So use that as a step. I can also put my email later if you want to reach me, and obviously Azim is really I think a great resources for you guys, right? And that will really actually help us to I think it's Indonesian. To look abroad, to look that, hey, opportunity abroad is possible, right? With that, thanks a lot, Azim, for the discussion. Really great discussion.
Thank you.
1.5 hours is a short time. I just see that it's already 90 minutes, and it's been an enjoyable discussion. I hope the rest of the team find it interesting as well. But don't stop here, right? I think it's continue the dream, right? And start do something with that.
Okay, thank you, both of you, for our speaker today. Before we close the session, maybe we can take a picture first, Mbak Krisa. Lego. For the participant, can you all open the video? Maybe we can start.